Have you ever noticed how some people can walk into a room, say one thing, and instantly command everyone's attention, while others, no matter how hard they try, get ignored, interrupted, or dismissed? It's not about how loud, smart, or experienced you are. It's about how you speak. In this video, I'll share powerful strategies to help you speak with confidence and ensure that people can't help but respect you. Some of these tips will make you nod in agreement, while others might surprise you. But I promise, everything you're about to learn will transform the way you communicate and how others perceive you. If you've ever felt overlooked in conversations or like your words didn't carry the weight they deserved, this video is for you. The strategies I'm about to share won't just make you more engaging. They'll also help you build respect and influence in any relationship or setting. Are you ready to elevate your communication skills and take control of every conversation? Let's dive in and make every word you say your superpower. Number 1. Master the art of pausing. Silence can be unnerving. It creates tension, draws attention, and forces people to sit with their thoughts. But here's the thing. Most of us are so uncomfortable with silence that we rush to fill it with words. We over-explain, repeat ourselves, or say things we don't need to, just to avoid that stillness. This instinct to fill the void robs us of one of the most powerful tools in communication: the pause. A pause isn't emptiness, it's where your power lies. Think about a skilled musician. They don't fill every second with sound. The pauses between notes are what give the music rhythm and meaning. In the same way, learning to pause while speaking can transform how people perceive you. In today's fast-paced world, we equate speed with confidence and competence. But speaking quickly isn't always effective. When you rush, your words can blur together into background noise, something people hear but don't truly listen to. A pause, on the other hand, forces them to pay attention. It creates anticipation, making them lean in to hear what comes next. I wasn't always comfortable with pausing. In fact, I used to be the worst at it. Early in my career, I believed I needed to prove myself by talking constantly. In meetings, during presentations, even in casual conversations, I would ramble on, thinking that silence made me seem unsure of myself. The truth, it didn't make me seem confident. It made me exhausting to listen to. One time, during a high-stakes meeting, I pitched an idea and felt the need to explain every detail, leaving no room for questions or feedback. After the meeting, my manager pulled me aside and said, "Your ideas are great, but you don't give people time to process them." That was my wake-up call. I realized I wasn't trusting my audience to follow me. I was doing all the work for them. I decided to experiment with pausing. At first, it was uncomfortable, really uncomfortable. I'd say something, pause, and feel an overwhelming urge to jump back in and clarify or add more, but I resisted. And you know what? Something amazing happened. Instead of people tuning out, they leaned in. Instead of glazing over, their eyes stayed on me. They weren't just hearing me anymore. They were listening. I remember a pivotal moment when this clicked for me. I was giving a presentation to a group of executives. This time, instead of racing through my points, I deliberately slowed down and paused after key ideas. At the end, one executive approached me and said, "The way you presented made every word feel important." That's when I knew pausing wasn't just a tool, it was a superpower. The pause isn't just about communication, it's about presence. It shows that you're so confident in what you're saying that you don't feel the need to rush or fill every moment with noise. A pause says, "I trust my words to stand on their own." And that kind of confidence commands respect. But the pause also teaches us patience. It forces us to slow down, to let our words sink in, and to allow others time to process. In a world that constantly rushes, there's something powerful about someone who's willing to take their time. It signals that they value not just their own words, but yours as well. Now I know what you might be thinking. If I pause, people will think I've lost my train of thought, or that I'm unsure. Let me flip that for you. Pausing doesn't make you seem uncertain. It makes you seem deliberate. It tells people, I'm thoughtful, I'm intentional, and I'm not afraid of silence. If someone misinterprets your pause as hesitation, that's their problem, not yours. The art of pausing extends beyond speaking. It's a lesson in life. It's about knowing when to slow down, when to let things breathe, and when to let silence speak louder than words. Whether you're in a heated discussion, delivering a presentation, or just having a casual conversation, pausing gives you control over the rhythm of the interaction. For example, let's say you're negotiating a raise. Instead of rushing to fill every moment of silence with justification for why you deserve more, try stating your case clearly, then pausing. Let the silence work for you. That pause puts the ball in their court, creating a space where they're compelled to respond. Pausing can also be incredibly disarming during conflicts. I once had a co-worker who always interrupted me in meetings. One day, instead of trying to talk over them, I stopped mid-sentence and looked at them silently. The pause forced them to realize what they were doing, and they immediately stopped. From then on, they interrupted me far less frequently. When used correctly, the pause can also shift the dynamic in your personal relationships. During an argument, instead of firing back immediately, take a breath and pause. It shows that you're not reacting impulsively, but are choosing your words carefully. That moment of stillness can de-escalate tension and pave the way for a more productive conversation. Mastering the art of pausing isn't easy, especially if you're used to filling every silence. It takes practice and patience. Start small. The next time you're speaking, consciously pause after a key point. Notice how people react. Do they lean in? Do they nod? Use those moments to reinforce your confidence. Here's the truth. Pausing isn't about doing less. It's about doing more with less. It's about making every word count. It's about trusting yourself and your audience. And most importantly, it's about reclaiming control over how you communicate and how you're perceived. So, the next time you're tempted to fill the silence with words, resist the urge, trust the pause, lean into the discomfort. Because when you master the rhythm of communication, you don't just earn respect, you own the room. And honestly, isn't that the kind of power you deserve? 2. Ditch the I'm sorry habit. Those two little words, I'm sorry, might be silently chipping away at your confidence and undermining how others perceive you. Let's be clear, unnecessary apologies don't make you polite or likable. Instead, they send the wrong message. I'm not worth taking seriously. When you apologize for every little thing, you're actually giving others the power to dismiss you, signaling that they can overlook you without consequence. Imagine this. You walk into a meeting and say, I'm sorry I'm late, even though you're just 1 minute behind because the elevator was slow. You've immediately positioned yourself as the problem, even when the situation was beyond your control. Or picture this. You're standing in line for coffee and someone accidentally bumps into you. Your first instinct, oh, I'm sorry. Why are you apologizing for simply being there? I'll never forget a time at a networking event when I was trying to make meaningful connections. While I was mid-conversation, someone interrupted me. My immediate reaction? Oh, sorry, go ahead. The moment those words left my mouth, I realized Why am I apologizing for speaking in a conversation where both of us have the right to be heard? That realization was a game changer for me. I decided then and there to stop apologizing unnecessarily. Instead of defaulting to, "I'm sorry," I began reframing my responses. Instead of saying, "I'm sorry I'm late," I'd say, "Thank you for waiting." When someone interrupted, I'd calmly reply, "Hold on, I'm not finished yet." And when I needed to ask for something, rather than saying, "Sorry for bothering you," I'd ask, "Do you have a moment?" These small adjustments not only made me feel more confident, but also changed how others responded to me. Over-apologizing isn't just a habit, it's a mindset. It's like you're apologizing for existing, for taking up space, for simply being human. If you keep doing it, people will start to believe it. They'll see you as someone who's always in the wrong, someone who doesn't value themselves enough to stand tall. But the truth is, you deserve to take up space. You deserve to have opinions, make mistakes, and learn from them. Respect doesn't come from constantly saying, "I'm sorry." It comes from owning who you are, imperfections and all. Next time you feel the urge to say, "I'm sorry," pause. Ask yourself, do I really need to apologize, or am I just trying to make myself smaller? Most of the time, the answer will be no. Replace those unnecessary apologies with confidence. Take back your voice. Not only will you feel stronger, but you'll notice people start to treat you with greater respect. Respect starts with how you see yourself. Stop apologizing for things that don't deserve an apology, and you'll discover just how powerful your presence can be. You don't need to apologize to be heard. You deserve to be heard just as you are. 3. Set boundaries and stick to them. Setting boundaries isn't selfish. It's one of the most respectful and self-affirming things you can do for yourself and those around you. Without boundaries, you aren't being kind or easygoing. You're sacrificing your peace for someone else's comfort. The truth is, if you don't define what's acceptable and what isn't, people will push their needs ahead of yours, leaving you overwhelmed, drained, and often resentful. Boundaries aren't walls meant to shut people out. They're guidelines that teach others how to treat you. Let me paint you a picture. Imagine you have a friend who constantly asks for your help at the last minute. Whether it's moving furniture, babysitting, or proofreading their work, they always expect you to drop everything and come running. You keep saying yes because you don't want to disappoint them or risk being seen as selfish. But one day, after cancelling your own plans for the 3rd time in a row to help them, it hits you. You've been putting their convenience above your own needs. You feel drained, unappreciated, and frankly, taken advantage of. That's the toll of living without boundaries. I once found myself in a similar situation. A colleague would frequently ask me to cover for them at work. At first, I thought helping out was the right thing to do. It showed I was a team player, right? But then it became a pattern. They'd leave early or miss deadlines, knowing I'd pick up the slack. One day, after staying late to finish a task they'd abandoned, I asked myself, why am I prioritizing their lack of organization over my own well-being? The next time they asked for help, I said, "I can't take this on right now. You'll need to figure it out." They weren't thrilled, but they adjusted, and I finally went home on time. Setting boundaries can feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you're used to saying yes to avoid conflict. People might push back, not because your boundaries are unreasonable, but because they've grown accustomed to you being overly accommodating. For example, I once had a family member who assumed I'd always be available to watch their kids. When I finally told them I couldn't do it one weekend because I had plans, they acted hurt, saying, "I thought I could count on you." For a moment, I felt guilty. But then I realized it wasn't about being a bad relative. It was about them respecting my time. When I held firm, they found another solution, and we remained on good terms. Boundaries aren't about shutting people down or being difficult. They're about creating mutual respect. They teach others that your time, energy, and well-being are valuable, and that you won't sacrifice them unnecessarily. Here's the hard truth. If you don't take your boundaries seriously, no one else will. You'll find yourself responding to work emails at midnight, agreeing to social plans you dread, and living a life dictated by others' expectations. It's not just about saying no, it's about sticking to that no. When you cave in and make exceptions, you send a message that your boundaries are negotiable. The key is to communicate them clearly and enforce them consistently. For example, if you decide you won't answer work emails after 6 p.m., don't break your own rule, just this once. People will notice the inconsistency and take advantage of it. Start small. If the idea of setting firm boundaries feels overwhelming, begin with low-stakes situations. Decline a social invitation you're not excited about, or let a coworker know you can't take on extra work this week. You'll see that the world doesn't end, and people adjust faster than you think. With time, saying no becomes less daunting, and you'll feel more confident establishing boundaries in bigger areas of your life. Setting boundaries also helps you identify who truly respects you. People who push back or guilt-trip you for having boundaries often benefit from your lack of them. On the other hand, those who value you will respect your needs, even if it means a temporary inconvenience for them. Boundaries act as a filter, separating those who uplift you from those who drain you. One common misconception is that boundaries require long explanations or apologies. They don't. Over-explaining often weakens your position and invites arguments. A simple, polite statement like, "I can't do that," is enough. Remember, your boundaries are not up for debate. Here's an important truth. Setting boundaries isn't about being mean, it's about being clear. When you communicate your limits respectfully, you're not just protecting yourself, you're also fostering healthier relationships. Boundaries eliminate confusion and resentment, creating a foundation of mutual understanding and respect. There's also a deeper benefit to boundaries. They teach self-respect. Each time you honor your own limits, you reinforce your worth. You remind yourself and others that you deserve to live a life that aligns with your values and priorities, not someone else's. Of course, boundaries aren't always easy. Some people won't like them, and that's okay. You're not responsible for their feelings. You're responsible for your own peace. The alternative to setting boundaries is living a life where everyone else's needs come before yours. And let me tell you from experience, that's a fast track to burnout and resentment. So take a moment to reflect. What are the areas in your life where you feel overextended or underappreciated? What would it look like to set boundaries in those situations? Communicate them clearly, stand by them firmly, and watch how the dynamics change. The people who truly value you will respect your boundaries. The ones who don't, they were never worth your time and energy to begin with. Boundaries aren't a luxury, they're a necessity. They're not about pushing people away. They're about making room for relationships that are built on respect and understanding. So start small, stay consistent, and remember, your well-being is worth it. Trust me, it's a lesson that will transform not just your relationships, but your entire outlook on life. 4. Use humor without turning into a clown. Humor is a powerful tool, much like a finely tuned instrument. Used correctly, it can captivate, charm, and connect. But wielded carelessly, it can backfire, making you seem less credible or even turning you into the person people laugh at, not with. Here's the truth. Nothing erodes respect faster than crossing the line from being funny to being a clown. That might sound harsh, but let's break it down so you can learn to use humor to enhance your presence, not undermine it. Let's start with the obvious. Humor has undeniable benefits. It can break tension, foster connections, and even make you appear smarter. Studies have shown that well-placed humor is a hallmark of emotional intelligence. But here's where it gets tricky. When overused or misplaced, humor stops being a tool and becomes a crutch. If you rely too heavily on self-deprecating jokes or turn every interaction into a comedy routine, people may start viewing you as someone who doesn't take things seriously, and worse, as someone they don't need to respect. I know this because I've been there. I used to be the person who always had a joke ready, even in moments where humor wasn't appropriate. I thought I was charming and approachable. In reality, I was diluting my credibility. I'll never forget the time I was presenting a project to a new client. In an attempt to break the ice, I joked about how I'd triple-checked the figures because, hey, math isn't my strong suit. Everyone laughed, but as the meeting progressed, I noticed the client deferring to my colleague for technical questions, even though I was the project lead. That moment hit hard. My joke had unintentionally signaled incompetence, even though I was fully capable. The lesson? Humor, when used improperly, can undermine your authority. But don't get me wrong, I'm not saying you need to strip humor from your interactions entirely. Humor is a great way to make connections and lighten the mood. The key is using it with intention. Are you using humor to connect with people, or are you using it to distract, deflect, or seek approval? Take self-deprecating humor, for example. In moderation, it's an excellent way to show humility and relatability. But when you consistently make yourself the punchline, you risk training people to see you as less competent or serious. There's a thin line between laughing with people and giving them permission to laugh at you. Here's an alternative approach. Use humor to uplift, not diminish. A friend of mine once taught me this subtle shift. During a team brainstorming session, instead of making a joke at his own expense, he turned the humor outward in a positive way. When someone suggested an unconventional idea, he said, "That's so bold it just might make us legends or give us a lot to laugh about at happy hour." It lightened the mood without sacrificing respect, and it encouraged creativity. That's the kind of humor that wins. When you balance humor thoughtfully, it reflects intelligence, confidence, and composure. On the flip side, when humor becomes a mask for discomfort or insecurity, it can signal the opposite. I remember a phase in my life when I used humor to avoid difficult conversations. When receiving critical feedback, I'd crack a joke to change the subject. In serious discussions, I'd throw in quips to avoid addressing the real issues. Over time, I noticed people stopped turning to me for meaningful input. They saw me as entertaining, but not someone to take seriously. It was a hard lesson. Respect doesn't come from being the funniest person in the room. It comes from knowing when to be serious and when to be light-hearted. So, how do you find the sweet spot? Start by aligning your humor with your message. Humor should add to the conversation, not detract from it. It should make people feel connected, not distracted. And most importantly, it should reinforce your confidence, not reveal insecurity. A well-placed joke can make you seem sharp and in control, while a string of jokes can make you seem like you're trying too hard to please. Let's also talk about the risk factor. Humor can be a double-edged sword, especially when it comes to sarcasm or dark humor. While it might make you seem witty in the right crowd, it can easily alienate or offend in the wrong one. This is where reading the room becomes essential. I once witnessed a colleague use sarcasm in a meeting to critique a suggestion. Instead of coming across as sharp, it created an awkward tension that derailed the discussion. A better approach would have been a light-hearted but neutral comment like, "That's an unexpected take. Let's explore it." Humor should diffuse tension, not escalate it. Here's a deeper truth. Humor is a reflection of who you are. Are you using it to build people up or tear them down? Are you hiding behind it to mask insecurity, or are you wielding it to showcase confidence? The way you use humor says a lot about how you perceive yourself and others. When you master the art of purposeful humor, you become memorable in the best way. People don't just laugh at your jokes. They respect the thoughtfulness and intention behind them. And that's the kind of humor that stands out in a room. So, the next time you're about to crack a joke, pause and ask yourself, what's my intent here? If it's to connect, go ahead. If it's to deflect or seek approval, reconsider. The balance you strike with humor can define how others perceive you. When done right, it's not just entertaining, it's transformative. Remember, humor is like seasoning. A pinch can elevate the dish, too much can ruin it. Use it wisely, and you'll leave a lasting impression, not as the clown, but as someone unforgettable. 5. Know when to stop talking. There's a certain power in knowing when to stop talking, a quiet strength that most people overlook. Too often we over-explain, over-clarify, or just keep talking to fill the silence. Why do we do this? If we're honest, it's rooted in insecurity. We think that if we don't keep talking, people will assume we're uncertain, uninformed, or unimpressive. So we ramble on, hoping to prove our intelligence, humor, or value. But here's the truth. The more you talk, the less impact your words have. Instead of building respect, excessive talking can make you seem uncertain and, dare I say, even desperate. I learned this the hard way during a job interview. I had just finished outlining my qualifications for a role, and the interviewer nodded in agreement. Instead of stopping there and letting my achievements speak for themselves, I kept going. I repeated points, added unnecessary details, and even tried to anticipate and answer questions they hadn't asked yet. By the time I finished, I noticed their initial enthusiasm had faded into confusion. Later, I realized I had drowned the power of my message in an ocean of unnecessary words. This is the controversial truth. The more you say, the less people hear. Imagine pouring water into a glass that's already full. The excess spills over, wasted, leaving nothing to be absorbed. Silence, on the other hand, has weight. It grabs attention, commands respect, and creates space for your words to land and resonate. When you stop talking, you give others room to process, reflect, and engage. It's in those pauses that respect takes root. At first, silence feels awkward. You say something, and instead of a quick reaction, you pause, and your mind screams, "Say something else." But here's the thing. Silence isn't your enemy, it's your ally. It's a tool that lets your words linger in the air, giving them a life of their own. Knowing when to stop talking isn't just about communication, it's about confidence. It's about believing your words have value without the need for endless elaboration. It's about trusting that silence is more persuasive than noise. Think about the most impactful speeches or moments in history. They weren't long-winded or overloaded with details. They were sharp, concise, and deliberate. In my personal life, I've started practicing this during family gatherings. I used to be the one who filled every silence with jokes, stories, or unnecessary explanations. But one day, I decided to try something different. I shared my thoughts and then stopped, letting the conversation flow naturally. The result was striking. Instead of tuning me out, people leaned in, asking for my opinion and engaging more deeply. By saying less, I became a focal point rather than background noise. This approach doesn't just apply to casual conversations, it works in professional settings too. During a recent team meeting, I presented an idea and then deliberately paused. I resisted the urge to over-explain or defend it. The silence that followed wasn't awkward, it was powerful. It gave my team time to digest the idea and respond thoughtfully. Later, a colleague told me that the pause made my suggestion feel more confident and deliberate. The lesson here is simple. When you know when to stop talking, you show people that you trust the strength of your words. You give them the space to truly hear you, respect you, and focus on what matters. It takes practice to get comfortable with silence, but once you master it, the impact is undeniable. Silence also forces you to be intentional with your words. When you stop filling every moment with chatter, you learn to choose your words carefully, making each one count. This doesn't just enhance your communication, it reshapes how people perceive you. Instead of someone who's trying too hard, you come across as composed, confident, and in control. And let's address the common fear. If I stop talking, people will think I've lost my train of thought. The truth is, silence doesn't make you look uncertain. It makes you look deliberate. It tells people, I'm thoughtful, intentional, and comfortable with a little quiet. If someone misinterprets that as hesitation, that's their issue, not yours. This lesson extends beyond words. It's a philosophy for life. Knowing when to pause isn't just about talking. It's about timing, patience, and presence. It's about recognizing when to slow down, let things breathe, and let silence speak louder than words. In a world that values constant motion, the ability to pause and reflect sets you apart. So the next time you're tempted to fill the air with words, resist. Trust in the power of your silence. Allow the pause to do its work. You'll find that not only do people respect you more, they actually hear you. When you master the art of pausing, you don't just earn respect, you command the room. And if you're worried about leaving people hanging, don't be. You're not dropping the ball, you're giving them the chance to pick it up. So next time you're in a conversation, practice this. Say what you need to say, then stop. Let the silence do the heavy lifting. Trust me, it will speak volumes. The power of knowing when to stop talking lies in its ability to build respect, focus, and connection. It's a skill that requires confidence, patience, and intentionality. But once mastered, it transforms not only the way people perceive you, but also the way you perceive yourself. So, step into the silence, own your words, and watch as respect follows naturally. 6. Drop the gossip. Gossip might feel like social currency, a fleeting moment of attention, a sense of being in on something exclusive. But let's be honest, it doesn't make you look interesting. It makes you look untrustworthy. If you're the person spilling everyone's secrets, people won't admire or respect you. They'll simply entertain themselves until they realize they could be next in line. That's the harsh reality of gossip. It doesn't elevate you, it diminishes you. Worse, it erodes the trust people have in you. And trust is the foundation of respect. I learned this the hard way. There was a time in my life when I thought sharing a little harmless gossip made me more likable or relatable. I'll never forget the time I made an offhand comment about a coworker, let's call her Lisa, who frequently took days off. I joked to someone during lunch, maybe Lisa's on another one of her mystery vacations. It was just a throwaway line, or so I thought. Within days, the comment spread like wildfire, and the story morphed into something unrecognizable. Lisa's unreliable. Lisa doesn't care about her job. Lisa's always slacking. The narrative spiraled. Then I learned the truth. Lisa had been taking time off to care for her father, who was battling a terminal illness. That realization hit me like a ton of bricks. My casual remark wasn't harmless. It was damaging and frankly cruel. This is the danger of gossip. It's never really about the person being talked about. It's about the person doing the talking. Why do we gossip? Is it to feel superior, to mask insecurities, or to appear interesting? If we're honest, most gossip stems from a place of weakness. It's a way of saying, don't look at my flaws, focus on theirs instead. But here's the harsh truth. When you gossip, people don't just question the character of the person you're talking about, they question your integrity. Now let's flip the script. What happens when you refuse to engage in gossip? When you're the person who doesn't participate in idle chatter, something powerful happens. People start to see you as someone trustworthy, someone who doesn't need to tear others down to feel good about themselves. That's the kind of person people respect. I remember when I consciously decided to stop gossiping. It wasn't easy at first. During a group discussion at work, someone started sharing a juicy story about a team member's supposed meltdown in another meeting. The old me would have leaned in, added a comment or laughed along. But this time, I simply said, "I hope they're okay," and shifted the conversation back to work. At first it felt awkward, like I was missing out. But over time, something shifted. People started coming to me for advice instead of drama. They saw me as someone who could handle situations maturely, not someone who would weaponize their vulnerabilities. Gossip doesn't just harm the person it targets, it also harms you. It chips away at your credibility, your relationships, and even your self-esteem. When you choose not to gossip, you're making a bold statement. I'm better than this. I don't need to build myself up by tearing others down. That's where real respect begins. Here's another truth. People who gossip are often the ones who aren't trusted with promotions, responsibilities, or personal confidences. Why? Because if you're willing to spread one person's secret, what's stopping you from doing the same with someone else's? The long-term consequences of gossip are clear. It isolates you and prevents others from seeing you as a leader or someone reliable. So, how do you stop gossiping and step into a position of respect? Start small. The next time someone tries to pull you into a gossipy conversation, deflect. Say something neutral like, "I'm not sure about that," or "I hope things work out for them." It might feel uncomfortable at first, especially if you've built relationships on shared gossip. But over time, people will respect your choice to rise above the negativity. And let's address the deeper issue here. What kind of person do you want to be? Someone who spreads negativity and distrust, or someone who lifts others up? Gossip might feel good in the moment. It's easy to get caught up in the drama. But respect is long-lasting. True respect doesn't come from knowing everyone's secrets. It comes from being the person who refuses to share them. Here's an exercise. The next time you're tempted to gossip, pause and ask yourself, why am I sharing this? What's my intention? If it's to feel included, remind yourself that your worth isn't tied to fitting in. If it's to distract from your own insecurities, remember that addressing them head-on is far more empowering. Choosing not to gossip is a daily practice, much like building a muscle. It requires conscious effort and self-awareness, but the rewards are worth it. Over time, you'll notice a shift in how people treat you. They'll trust you more, seek your advice, and respect you for your discretion. So the next time Karen from accounting comes up in conversation, maybe she's just living her best life. let her be. Instead of contributing to the noise, choose to be a source of positivity and trust. In a world that thrives on gossip, being the person who rises above it is rare. And it's exactly the kind of person people respect and remember. Hit the like button and share this content with someone who needs to hear it. And in the comments, I'd love to know, which tip will you try first? Or, if you have your own secrets for mastering conversations and setting expectations, share them with me. I'm always eager to learn from you. I'll see you in the next video. Keep showing up, keep speaking your truth, and most importantly, keep being the best version of yourself. But hey, if you're thinking about gossiping, maybe reconsider, okay? Stay positive, and I'll catch you soon. Peace. If you are new here, please like the video and subscribe. Statistics show that only 15% of my audience is subscribed to the channel, so if this content has helped you in any way, I ask you to subscribe and hit the notification bell.